This is Bagram Airbase, tucked away in the mountains of Afghanistan. An airbase the US abandoned in the dead of night is back in the headlines. Donald Trump takes the stage and makes a demand that shocks everyone. He wants the base back, but the Taliban refuses, obviously. I mean, these are the same people the US spent 20 years fighting. It's not like they're gonna say, "Oh sure, welcome back, here are the keys, help yourself to the runway." But hold on a second. Bagram today isn't under US control. It's inside Taliban territory, and the Taliban and Washington, they're not exactly friends. So how does America even imagine getting this base back? To understand, we have to step back, because Bagram isn't just any airfield. Its runways are long enough for heavy bombers and cargo planes. Its location is even more valuable. That alone makes it a strategic jewel. But beneath the soil, there's something else. Resources every superpower is hungry for. China, already investing in Afghanistan's mines, sees Bagram as leverage. Russia, humiliated by its own wars, doesn't want another NATO foothold near its underbelly. Iran, boxed in by sanctions, is desperate to block any US return. But the Taliban, they know this base is the one bargaining chip that can make even the world's biggest powers knock on their door. So what looks like a simple story, America demanding, Taliban refusing, is actually the opening move in a new great game. One where Washington, Beijing, Moscow and Tehran circle Bagram like vultures. Because whoever controls this base doesn't just hold Afghanistan, they hold the keys to Central Asia. So the real question isn't whether the US can take Bagram back, it's what happens if it tries. Before we dig into the iceberg, we need to talk about Bagram. A place that looks just like another dusty airfield, but is actually one of the most valuable pieces of military real estate on Earth. Why does it matter so much? The short answer, it's location. But for a long answer, we have to go back. Way back. Bagram didn't just pop up after 9/11 like some made-for-TV fortress in the War on Terror. Nope, its story goes back further, back to the 1950s, when the Soviet Union convinced Afghanistan's monarchy to let them build a shiny new airbase. Why would Kabul say yes? Because Soviet money and engineering brought influence. Why would Moscow want it? Because a foothold in the Afghan mountains gives you altitude, reach, and pressure on every corridor into Central and South Asia, and Bagram was their golden ticket. Fast forward to 1979, the Soviets invade Afghanistan. And suddenly, Bagram isn't just an airfield, it's the airfield. It becomes their headquarters, their command center, the switchboard for logistics and air cover, their everything. For 10 years, this place has been the beating heart of the occupation. Planes, tanks, soldiers flowing in and out like a conveyor belt of war, because without airlift and a protected hub, an occupation starves. But nothing lasts forever. The Soviets pull out. The Afghan government collapses, the Northern Alliance takes over for a bit, but the Taliban sweeps in, capturing Bagram as just another prize in an endless civil war, because whoever holds the runway holds the tempo, medivac, resupply, and the ability to hit first. And that could have been the end of the story, but September 11th, the US storms in. They take one look at the rusty Soviet leftovers and say, "Yep, we're gonna turn this into a fortress." Why rebuild here instead of somewhere new? Because the site already had space, altitude, approach lanes, and proximity to Kabul. Years saved, risk reduced. And oh boy, did they. Two massive runways, one stretching 3.6 kilometers, the other just over 3. That length matters. Long enough to land heavy bombers, cargo planes, even fighter jets, and long enough to do it at Afghan altitude without sweating density altitude penalties. A full-blown hospital with trauma bays, surgical wards, and a 50-bed facility, complete with dental clinics. Barracks big enough for 10,000 troops. That means surge capacity. You can scale operations without waiting on tents and luck. 110 hardened aircraft shelters. Fuel depots that could keep operations going for months. And looming over it all, the prison. A detention center so notorious it got nicknamed Afghanistan's Guantanamo. At its peak, Bagram wasn't just a base. It was a small American city. Fast food joints, PX stores, all sitting in the middle of Afghanistan. Because morale, retention, and rotation rhythms keep a long war running. But here's the thing. Bagram wasn't just about fighting the Taliban or Al-Qaeda. Its location gave the US something way more valuable: leverage. From Bagram, you could monitor Iran, pressure Pakistan, keep an eye on Russia's southern flank, and most importantly, you're just a 1-hour flight from China's Xinjiang province, home to its nuclear weapons and missile sites. That's why some US officers called Bagram the Pentagon's crown jewel in Asia. It was the geopolitical Swiss Army knife of Central Asia, one node that could cut, pry, and leverage multiple fronts at once. So when the US quietly slipped out in the dead of night in 2021, cutting the electricity and leaving the Afghans literally in the dark, on the surface it looked like the end of a decades-long war. But in reality, it was surrendering a vantage point and one of the most strategically valuable military assets on Earth. And guess who noticed? China. Afghanistan is sitting on a treasure chest. Geologists estimate more than $1 trillion in untapped mineral wealth, like uranium, and most importantly, lithium. Lithium is one thing that powers the modern world. Without it, there are no rechargeable batteries, no smartphones, no electric cars, no green transition. And Afghanistan's lithium reserves are so vast that Pentagon reports once called the country the Saudi Arabia of lithium. China knows this. That's why Chinese companies have already toured sites, inspected deposits, and dangled offers worth up to $10 billion to develop mines and build a lithium processing plant. But Beijing's strategy isn't just about digging today, it's about locking down tomorrow. By planting itself early, bidding for concessions, and tying Afghanistan into the Belt and Road Initiative and the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, China blocks rivals, corners supply, and sets itself up as the gatekeeper of Afghan minerals once security improves. But resources are only half the story. For Beijing, the bigger red line is security. China's #1 fear, a US return to Bagram. Because from Bagram, American bombers and drones can watch Xinjiang, 1 hour's flight time from China's most sensitive nuclear and missile sites. To Beijing, that's not just an airfield, that's a loaded gun pointed at their head. So when Donald Trump stood up in 2025 and demanded Bagram back, Beijing didn't just roll its eyes. It saw a direct threat to its core national interests.
We're going to keep Bagram, the big airbase, one of the biggest air bases in the world. We gave it to them for nothing. We're trying to get it back, by the way. Okay, that could be a little breaking news. We're trying to get it back.
There's another layer too. China has long worried that Uyghur militant groups like the East Turkestan Islamic Movement, ETIM, could use Afghan soil to launch attacks or fuel separatism inside Xinjiang. So Beijing does what it does best: cash for compliance. Investments, contracts, diplomatic recognition, all in exchange for one thing: keep the Uyghurs quiet and keep the Americans out. But here's the dangerous truth. Bagram is no longer just an Afghan story. It's the stage for a new great game. One that mixes minerals with missiles, history with strategy, and ideology with geography. But if Washington actually tries to reclaim it, it won't just be facing the Taliban. It could be staring down Beijing, Moscow, and Tehran all at once on Taliban soil. So the question isn't just who controls Bagram today. The question is, whose move is next?